Hello, everybody. This is the More Media Records Off the Air podcast. I'm your host, Isaac Coons, and I am joined by my co host,
Devin Foot.
And before we get into our topic that we're going to discuss today, I would like to give a quick spiel on what More Media Records is all about. More Media Records is a student run record label here on Central Michigan University's campus. We meet on 7:30 p.m. on Thursdays, and there's a lot of stuff that we have in store. In particular, there's a sampler album that we put together every year with various different bands, and then we have a huge concert for it at the end of the year. So, if you're interested, go ahead and get in touch. Today, we are joined by a special guest, and that is More Media Records' very own artist relations manager, Jacob McLeod.
Hey Isaac, how's it going? Glad to be here.
This is going good. This is going good.
Awesome.
So, it's very nice to have you on. I'm glad you agreed to this.
Great to be here.
Yeah, Devin and I have a lot of questions for you, and
Sweet.
yeah, I mean, I tried to make the questions different from questions that people probably ask all the time whenever they interview you.
Yeah, you've probably heard them like over and over again, so we just wanted to try and make it a little bit more unique.
Yeah, just more varied.
Awesome. Well, hit me.
All right. I hope that these aren't like things people have already asked, but I mean, even if they are, it's got an interesting take to it.
Absolutely.
So, although we do want to ask a few questions first, because we were asked to touch on these beforehand, but so we heard it through the grapevine that you have been filming a music video for Northwoods Bound.
That's right. Yep, that's a song I released on my debut album about a year ago, and that was around the same time that the music video committee for More Media Records was being formed. So the lovely heads of that program, Michaela Jarrett and Luke, they asked me to come up with something and do a little music video for that, and of course I wholeheartedly agreed. And yeah, so 2 weekends ago we did some shoots in my house. We did some in, I think it was Alma, some random woods in the middle of nowhere, and they made me dress up like a cowboy, put a cowboy hat, and I had a beaten up guitar, and yeah, we got some good footage for that song. It's a cool tune because I say this every time before I play it live. It's a song where, I grew up in Central Michigan pretty much. I'm Midwest white guy, born and raised, and mayonnaise type of beat. But yeah. I wanted to write a little cowboy country song because who doesn't like that from time to time?
Of course.
And, so,
and this was a question that I had. You found a place called like Northwoods?
That's right. Yeah, actually, there's a picture of me. Yeah, standing in front. It was crazy because we were in this woods in Alma, just messing around, getting some good shots, and there was a sign that said South Woods. So we're like, oh my gosh, if there's a Southwoods, there has to be a Northwoods. So we went scouring for like 20 minutes. We found the Northwoods sign and got some good pictures.
That's amazing.
Awesome.
I love when things line up like that. That's so cool.
Definitely.
I'm glad that you've been able to get that done. They're currently editing it right now, and from what I've seen, it looks pretty baller. So
awesome.
I'm excited for it to hit the waves of the internet. All right, so we'll get into the other questions here, but have you had any like interesting things related? Sorry, have you had any interesting stories related to a venue booking? Like if you're booking a venue for a show, is there like a crazy thing that happened that you'd like to talk about?
I've got some stories. I definitely can't think of anything crazy, but for me as an artist at the point I am in my career, I'm not playing Madison Square Garden or Red Rocks. Some of the venues, a lot of the venues, almost all of the venues are serve as some kind of restaurant or bar or gathering for people that happen to do music. And I do that because, that's what pays the bills and stuff. And every once in a while I get to do a cool concert and stuff. But most of the time, at least in the last 2 years or so, that's what it's been. And so the thing about that is that the people that are booking you for these are serving as also the owner or the manager of whatever place. And I talk about this with Jim Balella a lot, but he talks about there's a certain personality of like a bar owner, and it's not to say anything bad about them, but you can kind of just tell.
Yeah.
And I've had my experiences with those kind of people. There's one guy who double booked me 3 times in the span of 5 months, I think. And if you don't know what a double booking is, for those of you that don't, it's when I book a show with him and I come in that day and there's somebody setting up on stage already, and so there's definitely those guys out there that don't care too much about music, and just unfortunately that happens sometimes.
Just not great schedule management.
And when you're trying to book, this last summer I was doing shows almost every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and sometimes Sunday, sometimes Tuesday and Wednesday, but mostly just every weekend day. So it can be a lot trying to manage all of those booking agents and stuff, all at once, and emails. Got to follow up all the time. Those people are not always the best at responding to email, so it can be a lot of work, but when you get there and the show's there, it can be very rewarding. So,
yeah,
absolutely.
And going off of that, I'd also like to ask, are there any venues that you've done that were like really hard to book?
Yeah, well, there are some venues where it's all about who you know. In fact, me and my band are doing a show a week from tomorrow, next Friday, at a place called the Castle in Canadian Lakes. It's a really nice venue. It's where we used to have our prom back in high school.
Oh, that's great.
We've done this show the last 2 years, and we're going to do it again. It's like a members only. Canadian Lakes is like this really kind of like upper class community where people from Florida come up to Michigan and retire, that kind of deal. And our drummer's mom happened to know the person that was booking bands for that and heard we had a band. So we've had that for a while, but it would not be something you'd be able to book by sending an email. So a lot of the times you can do the cold email thing, but it's going to come down to who you know. And it's a really cool venue, big stage, big castle. So there's lots of stuff like that. It's one of the more important things too, is your connections.
Yeah.
Booking gigs like that.
And that also kind of makes me wonder if there are any professors on campus that have helped you get where you are now.
Yeah, I think definitely in the beginning I was taking Music 102, Theory and Analysis of Pop Music with Dr. Scott Harding at the School of Music, and he's also in a band. He's a composition professor, but he's a songwriter too, and he's a drummer in his band, and that's his main passion, is the songwriting stuff. And now I'm taking songwriting with him this semester, which is really cool. But back freshman year, I was always asking him all these questions, like, I'm releasing my first song. What should I do? And he told me about, copywriting and signing up for a performance rights organization and all that. So he's helped a lot with the kind of the music business kind of publishing aspect of that. And then I think just being in college for now almost 3 years has helped me grow so much in my musicality and my lyric writing, and now taking Jim Balella's class, the audio production, has done wonders for me. So definitely a lot of that.
Devin, do you have anything you'd like to ask?
So I saw you perform at, I think it was the ARC performance thing right next to Max and Emily's.
That's right, the Artery Center,
And you were talking about a song that, I'm not sure if it's been recorded yet or not, but it was talking about your diagnosis of diabetes.
Type 1 diabetes.
Yeah, could you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so I got diagnosed on the day that I released my debut album a year ago, September 8th, which was funny. That it was a crazy day. I tell this story a lot. I had 3 things happen to me that day. I turned 19, released my first album, and then I got that diagnosis a little bit later. So it was a bittersweet day. And then I had a big album release show the day after, and a lot of people that I love came out to that and helped me out and supported me. It's been great. My dad had type 1 diabetes, or he has type 1 diabetes, so it's been a support system there, so it hasn't been, a super lonely process. But I figured I needed to write a song about that, and I did, and it held some significance at the Art Reach Center there, because I went to one of those poetry events last year, and I saw a poet who read her poems about her experience with type 1 diabetes, and it was my first time I realized that you can make art about something like that. So I thought it would be cool, and then I booked that gig to play music for one of those this semester, and I thought it would be a great chance to write something as kind of like a tribute to that. And the song I wrote called Low, and I haven't recorded it yet, but I think I will. I'm pretty proud of that one, so it means a lot to me.
And if you do record it, will you put it in as a single or EP or like in an album?
Yeah, I don't know. That song, it probably wouldn't be a crazy big production. It's kind of low key. It would probably just be acoustic with vocal. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I would release it as like an anniversary thing. Like I was diagnosed 2 years ago today. Whatever, here's this song, something like that. Or it could be like track 7 on my second album or something. Something like that. Yeah. So who knows? We'll see. But for now, it's a cool song. I like to play it whenever I get like a low key kind of vibe from a place, and yeah, it's not always the case. Sometimes you'll have playing these bars and stuff. It'll be like 9:30 and you've got like 50 drunk guys out there. I can't really do I like to play like Hosier, Cherry Wine. You can't really play that kind of slower stuff to an audience like that. So yeah, that's another thing too. I guess I do is just base the music off of who you got out there. But yeah.
So I actually did not know about any of that. So Devin, thank you for bringing that to my attention. That's actually a really interesting thing.
Yeah, pretty cool.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, no, it was a really great song, and that like I wouldn't say it like hold like a significant message to me, but like after hearing your backstory about writing like about the things that like have happened to you, and you can put that into storytelling, and I've been taking creative writing class, and I've been doing that myself. I was like, I have to thank you for that.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah, and that's actually where the first time I had that is immediately after I saw Katie Hartsock was the poet I saw last year that read those poems about that. And I was taking Darren Doyle, you know him?
I think
creative writing. I was taking that, and I was like, I think I'll try my hand at writing a poem about this. That's how I started. I wrote a poem, and then now I'm in the next level up from that poetry class with Bean. But I think as a songwriter, for me, this is a musician in general, songwriting is my absolute favorite thing, my absolute biggest passion, and it's because you get to do things like that. You get to put a piece of yourself in each song, and every song I write is like a baby of mine, so it's good to have that kind of connection with music, and that's one thing I know for a fact I'll never stop doing is just writing music. So
towards the end of last year, I signed a double minor for creative writing.
Nice.
So I was already doing MCA and multimedia design as a minor.
Awesome.
But then I signed on creative writing because it was something I felt like I'd have a lot of passion for.
It is such an interesting thing, yeah.
I'm currently taking Intro to Literary Analysis, which isn't quite what I want to do, but it's like the milestone. You have to take that class in order to take the other classes. But next year, I'm going to have my first class with Bean, and that's great.
He's awesome.
I hear great things about him.
It's fantastic.
I love him because he's got my exact sense of humor. Like, it's just so dry or whatever. It's like, it's just awesome. But yeah, and then we're taking the screenwriting class next year. So I'm excited for that.
Although I did read like 90 pages. That's going to be a big undertaking, but I'm looking forward to it. I am looking forward to it. But yeah, so with all this in mind, these questions that we've asked, I would like to like kind of take it in a different direction.
Yeah.
And there's one question I'd like to build upon, and that's what are special things that you notice from the audience's perspective after doing live shows frequently? Like now that you have been on the stage, what do you now notice now that if you're off stage watching someone else?
Right. Okay, so watching somebody else do music.
Yeah, in like a live venue.
Yeah. Well, you can kind of see like, you see like they'll do a certain thing, or like a certain look, or some kind of gesture, and you're like I've been there. Yeah. I know what he's thinking right now. That kind of thing. I feel like it's always the same. I mean, and this can translate to any venue. Like I'm playing bars and stuff, but then I went and saw Hosier in May at Van Andel Arena, and just watching him, and it's kind of crazy to think that the same things are probably going through our heads. Maybe he's thinking, wow, look at all these people, they all love me, and I'm thinking, these people don't really care, they're just here to get drunk, but at the end of the day, like I always close my eyes when I sing, and I put everything I got into the music regardless of where I'm playing, and I can see that guy's doing the same thing, and here he is. He had a #1 hit when I saw him. He was #1 in the country with that song Too Sweet. And so I think there are definitely some parallels. It's cool to see other people up there. It's definitely weird. It's always when you go to a concert or whatever as a musician, it's always like that put me in coach philosophy. It's like it's that one meme or whatever where it's like the guy dressed up in the football. He's wearing like football pads and a helmet, and he's sitting in the stands or whatever. It's that kind of thing. It's like, you know, let me, but yeah, it's you can definitely appreciate it from a performer and from an audience standpoint. I think as a performer, going that end, looking back on the audience, I think that's been one of my favorite things too about doing shows is just watching people. I mean, it sounds kind of creepy, but you can learn a lot about people, and you do have to be observant. As a songwriter, I can't tell you how many stories I've seen just from watching people from on stage or talking to people after a gig. You know, it's awesome. There's so many people out there, which is one thing you really learn, and they all respond differently to music. You know, if I play something like Piano Man, you know, I know what group of people or which people, probably the guys at the bar are gonna respond to that. Whereas if I play one of my original songs, you know, I know the older couple sitting to my left that's been watching me all night with their chin in their hand is gonna appreciate that. So yeah, I mean, you learn a lot about people, a lot about music, a lot about yourself. So yeah.
So I'd say like the getting into smaller venues is really just gauging the room. And deciding what you think will fit in the moment.
That's absolutely,
and that's a huge part of live performing. That's really neat. So I'd like to talk about like the pros and cons of live venues.
Yeah.
And I know that I'm sure, like, again, you said you haven't performed like huge venues before, obviously, but
there have been some bigger ones though. Yeah, I can definitely.
Have you noticed any differences between the smaller ones and the large ones?
Yeah, so I mean, I've played in places where they put you in a corner right by the bathroom. You know, that's literally. I mean, I did that. A couple years ago, my first gig that kind of put me through college in the first 2 years was I played at this brewery in my hometown, Cranker's Brewery, and that was awesome. That was one of the places where I learned about people, right? But they used to have this stage inside, and they ended up taking the stage out. Mm-hmm. In place of an indoor golf simulator. So that's when I got stuck in the corner doing music by the bathroom, and then after a while, you know, that their whole music thing kind of died down. So there are a lot of places that maybe don't put as much of a value on that kind of music, and you get that from the experience. So you're on the floor. There are some places where you're on where they do have a stage, but nobody's really watching you, that kind of thing. Whereas if you go to some of the bigger places I played, there are better. A bigger venue will have their own sound system, which is one of the probably biggest pros of that. You can just plug into that and be pretty loud. I did that show at Main Stage this year where they had a traveling audio company, and they had this like truck that just unfolded into a stage with these massive subs and mains.
I think I remember seeing that. When I went to Main Stage, it was like stupidly hot out, so I wasn't there for very long.
Oh my gosh,
yeah, I had heat stroke during that.
I played a 40-minute set and I was drenched. I mean, so let's see, I did this one earlier 2 months ago or so in September. It was like a benefit concert where I was kind of opening for this bigger band. And they had a big stage. They had a sound guy and these, you know, massive mains and some good subs. So that's cool. You know, that's definitely for me the biggest benefit of doing venues that are bigger is that sound system. And then when you do a bigger venue like that, I think the audience is more in tune with what's going on musically. You know, because they're there. This place is like they make a big deal out of music, so the audience will too. Whereas if I'm going to, you know, the local bar or something, they're not gonna make a big deal about the music and people are there to drink, you know. So yeah, if every show I did could be a bigger venue, that would be ideal, you know. But I can't say I'm there yet.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the beauty though. I start booking some of these that are like a bigger venue or like a theater or something, and that's really cool. And it's just cool to break into that. And then I guess the bigger you get, you kind of lose that connection with people too. So the big pro of playing these smaller venues is that I get to meet a lot of people and talk to a lot of cool people, and they can just come up to you and say, you know, and I can do cool stuff like this. Someone will say, oh, do you know how to play Last Dance with Mary Jane by Tom Petty? I go, who's that by? And then I talk to them for a bit. And then I just start playing it, and they go, you know, you can do stuff like it's fun, you know. So those smaller gigs are always going to be fun, and you're always going to have a good time meeting people. And yeah, each side has its own benefit.
Yeah.
I'll say, just out of curiosity, I'm not sure if you've ever performed there or not, but have you ever gone to the Park Theater in like the Holland area?
I have not, but I've heard great things about it. Yeah, I see the a lot of bands I know do their like monthly open mic there or whatever.
Yeah.
Did Lai go to that?
Yeah,
They
Ma-
did, yeah.
Ma goes
I think they
quite
got their
often.
start there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
so-
mean, well, yeah, they are from the
Yeah.
Holland area.
Yeah,
So.
so definitely a place to check. I mean, that's one thing. Another thing I've learned too is there's just an endless amount of places that do music in Michigan. I
Yeah.
spend hours, and I've been doing it a lot lately because a lot of the bigger spots are starting to book for summer right now.
Mhm.
So I've been grinding, just going through all these venues and sending emails and following up, and there's so many places to play. So
Yeah. Going back to the idea of like crowd energy, it reminds me of this story from a few years ago when we had our sampler for Handcrafted. I believe one of the first bands, their drummer dropped out,
oh yeah,
so they had to play like an acoustic set,
LSD, yeah.
and I don't remember that being very like energetic
Yeah,
in the
no,
room, because
no.
once you take out a certain element, like
Right,
it doesn't really match.
yeah.
But do you feel that like if you're playing with multiple bands and like where they put you in like the order, does that affect how people perceive?
Absolutely, yeah. So I mean, it's always it's a big question. I mean, the opening act is always going to be kind of disregarded. Unfortunately, it's it kind of comes to that. That's when people are, at least for somewhere, if you're at like a stadium or something, people are still rolling in or using the bathroom, getting their drinks, whatever.
Right.
Yeah, if you're talking about like a smaller club show where it's got like 4 bands on a bill, I do feel like that energy is gonna peak around the second or third band. I think we saw that with our most recent show at the Halloween show. I feel like
Vamp
the most energy I felt like was during the Chapter 4 set.
The one where I was sitting at the merch table. That one.
Oh man,
I didn't
too
get
bad.
to experience that.
They
My
were
girlfriend
cool,
was
yeah.
also feeling
Yeah.
sick, so.
But yeah, and then you kind of roll around at the very end. And, that might be the headliner, so people are gonna be pumped for the headliner.
Mhm.
But the reality is that they're gonna have sit through it or dance through and scream through 2 or 3 sets already.
Yes.
They're gonna be a little burnt out.
Yeah,
So.
I feel like from the patterns that I've noticed with 3 bands in like a lineup, the first band is gonna get pretty good energy,
Oh,
but
yeah.
like not the peak of the energy.
But they're gonna be fresh. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then the second one's gonna go absolutely crazy.
Yep.
And then the third one is gonna go just as crazy but with less people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because people are gonna be
for sure.
yes.
The dedicated ones, the real fans will stick around. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just something I've noticed. I kind of want to discuss something about live venues. I come from a different background with live venue performances. I worked at Blue Lake Fine Arts Camp over the summer.
Oh, okay, nice.
And they had a lot of faculty come in and do performances for the campers, and I would do things and like move chairs and stands and for orchestras and bands that would come through, and I didn't really like it all that much, but I felt like I was doing something pretty important.
Yeah.
I was basically just doing grunt work for these people who were coming in and
Making
doing
it
their
happen.
thing, but they definitely had a setup there, and mainly what I'd like to touch on is all the performance areas. The main one is Stewart, the Stewart shell, the Stewart
Okay.
band shell, and if anybody listening is familiar with Blue Lake, then they know that place is gorgeous.
Mm.
Like, I mean, there's cobwebs everywhere that I had to personally get rid of, but I mean, it's nice. It's like a shell, this big open area,
Good
and
sound.
good sound.
Nice.
Yes, very good sound. The sound guy there, Steve Leeper. Sorry, no, not Steve Leeper. Steve Leeper is the animation guy at CMU.
Okay.
Steve Albert.
Okay. Nice.
Steve Albert was our audio guy over at Blue Lake. He's basically the Blue Lake equivalent of Cam, except old. And
deal.
and he was my favorite person at that camp. And I worked with my current roommate as my manager and a bunch of other people, but Steve Albert was just really cool. A really cool guy. Worked with the radio, and I thought he was really interesting to work with. And no, I thought that it was a very nice opportunity to be able to work in these areas at this camp. And I feel like it was a good experience, no matter how unbelievably hot it would get in the summer and the amount of little kids that I'd have to deal with. But it was still good experience. I like doing that venue stuff.
I just want to add on to that. For me personally, I can kind of relate to that, because it was at a camp.
Right.
Just a different one.
Yeah, because you worked at a camp too, right?
Yeah, I work in the summers as a camp counselor in a somewhat smaller camp called Westwood Woods.
Yeah.
It's in Dowling, Michigan, which is like in between Kalamazoo and Battle Creek or something like that. And at the end of the week, in our camp week, we do a talent show, and I usually try to perform as much as possible there.
Nice.
Just for fun, why not? Just entertain the campers.
Camps always do that one thing where they get all the counselors to do something for everyone to laugh at.
It's completely voluntary, so I just volunteer to do it.
I remember Blue Lake had this thing called All Camp Sing, and I'd have to sit there in the little room on the side to make sure nothing went awry while all these kids lip synced and stuff.
And for me, obviously it's a talent show, so you'd be watching and then you'd be performing in it. And I've noticed that I think it's just because it's at a camp, it's slightly different. It's like you can feel like the energy of the crowd just being like, okay, this is kind of silly, this is kind of fun, like not taking it like fully seriously and all that, but I see from the performers they're just like having that same like silly fun as well, and also I do karaoke as well.
Of course.
Not greatly, but
but no one does. It's not meant to be great.
Let me tell you, it's a performance though.
Yeah, exactly.
And I have my own enjoyment in doing that as well, and just seeing the crowd's reaction after what you call performance from me.
I have this old video from when I was in like the 5th grade at like a church thing, and I lip synced and like danced around to Footloose on the stage, and there were like people in the crowd going woo, and I was just like hamming it up, and I was a huge theater kid, not in 5th grade, but in high school and stuff. So stage fright doesn't affect me to the degree that it does most people, but still a factor. Is it a factor for you, Jacob? I mean, I know everyone has a little bit of stage fright, but how's that like kind of affected you?
Well, I got an anecdote that I kind of tell every time anyone asks me about this. It's an inevitable question for a performer. So I mean, it does happen, definitely. And if I know, I got nervous first time I did a show in front of my girlfriend, like kind of stuff like that. But I've gotten used to it to a point where it's like I'm very comfortable being on stage. But sometimes I think before every show there's always a little bit of nervousness, just because I'm excited. I want it to go well, but there's a story. I mean, I used to get it bad though, and so I've gotten a lot better. In this story, I was a big clarinet player back in the day. Right. My sophomore year, I was first chair all-state band clarinet player. I was big into clarinet. My dad got his master's at CMU in clarinet playing, so. Yeah, it was a big deal. My junior year, I was part of a group called the Grand Rapids Youth Symphony, which is like the subsidiary of the Grand Rapids Symphony, and
which I did help set up a show for.
Oh, did you? Nice.
I think.
We did. We had this concerto competition, which is like you play a solo, and almost everybody did it. You audition, and they select one like horn and one string to do a solo with the whole group accompanying them in DeVos Hall, if you guys know DeVos Hall.
I think I'm going there this Sunday for Comic-Con.
Yeah, nice.
I'm going to meet Doug Walker.
Yeah. So, I mean, I ended up winning that. It was a nice little bit of money, which was cool. And then I realized that I had to do this show in DeVos Hall, which is the same venue that I saw Bobby McFerrin, Bob Dylan, and Ringo Starr play shows at. So I was like, why am I... And anyway, I had major imposter syndrome there. So I worked as Mozart... clarinet concerto, which, by the way, if anybody out there pays attention to the music I released, that's kind of where
Mozart EP.
the inspiration for the EP came. But yeah, so I had to do this show. It's a 10-minute solo, and there's a video of it out there somewhere. I have it, and basically it's got 5 minutes of like beginning where there's no break. So I mean, I'm going. They gave me a dressing room and stuff. When I got there, it was the same dressing room that all those other big stars that I named use. And so I was sitting there, 16 years old, thinking I was, it. Yeah. And then I go out there. As soon as I go out there, I'm like, wow, look at this big crowd. There's 2 double-decker, triple-decker, kind of seating setup. Like, this is awesome. And then I play that first note, and I'm like, oh, man. here we go. I was doing this thing memorized. So I did that 5-minute exposition with no break, and I had to turn around away from the audience, and I was almost on my hands and knees, like breathing. I mean, that was the most nervous I've ever been in my life. I'll never be that nervous again, I don't think.
It really hits you during like your first thing that you do.
Yeah, and then I turned around, I finished it off, and I always say it's been, uphill from there, the stage for everything. So
I'd say when I was in theater in high school, the first thing I ever did related to a theater class that I took was a poem. Like I recited a poem at like a coffee house thing.
Nice.
And it was like I had like all black. I had like a red tie, and I think it was a Walt Whitman thing.
Oh, cool.
Walt Whitman.
I think it was Walt Whitman, but I was the only person to flub their poem because I got distracted. I got like scared, and I like messed up that like final thing, and I just let it eat at me.
Yeah.
I was so upset, and I wasn't nearly as confident of a person as I am now back then.
Yeah.
It was my freshman year of high school, so obviously I was an awkward kid.
Sure.
But I was just like, as I went through theater and started doing more things related to it, I became less nervous and more excited to do things.
Oh, yeah.
And by the end of my time at the high school, I got the Excellence in Theater Arts Award.
Nice.
So that is something I think about where like it really helped build my confidence to just keep having moments like that.
Oh yeah.
Like and I know it definitely is a cliche though. Like everyone's gonna say you have to fail upwards, and it's like I mean it's true though. Like
it's so true. Yeah.
It is a thing.
For me, last year, I was in oral interpretations.
I think I took. No, I didn't take that. Oh, but a lot of people did.
Yeah, and our first assignment was to mimic like a friend or like someone we knew and try to get their mannerisms correct. And the first performance I did, I was so nervous because I hadn't performed in like years.
Right.
And so I was just shaking, all that voice trembling and all. And then fast forward to the final performance, we got to choose a monologue of our choice.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so, I remember doing monologues for Theater 1 when I was a freshman in high school.
So I chose a 10-minute monologue
Dude!
that I memorized. I could still do part of it right now.
Wow.
What was it from?
It was from Spalding Gray's Swimming to Cambodia.
Okay.
It's a very interesting movie.
Huh.
Anyways, I had memorized 10 minutes of this, but the professor was like, all right, we're going to do a 4-minute monologue. Okay, so I just performed for a workshop, I just performed the entire thing without script.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone was impressed with that. But they're like, you need to cut it. I'm like,
yeah.
Okay, so like the very final performance, I trimmed this like halfway down.
Wow.
And I started flubbing.
Yeah.
After a while, I was like, wow, that's a little bit of a humbling thing right there.
Yeah.
That's such a fun class.
It definitely did. I never took it.
Oh,
I haven't taken it.
It was great. It's a great way to like. That's a good freshman class to take.
Yeah.
I took that as a freshman.
Not everybody took it as a freshman.
You're just embarrassing yourself,
me.
you know. I did. My final was the opening scene from The Godfather. You know, my guy sitting there. You come to me on the day my daughter has to be married.
Yeah.
I did that whole thing.
I wish I could have done that now, but maybe there'll be room in my schedule next year for me to plop that in.
Yeah.
Even though I'll be a senior in a mostly freshman class, but that's fine. I don't care about that.
Yeah, it's okay.
I don't know. Devin mentioned having an assignment where you like mimic someone's mannerisms, and I'm like, oh, I could do Jacob McLeod by now, probably.
Could you?
Yeah, I could be like.
Nobody's gonna know what you just did.
Exactly. For the audience at home, Jacob likes to shoot hoops at me, and I have to like just sit there and take it.
That's right.
But yeah, is there anything else you would like to add, Devin?
Oh yeah. So where can people find you on the internet or any local performances coming up soon?
Yeah, so I mean, whatever you got on Spotify, Apple, Amazon Music, it's on all of that stuff. SoundCloud, if you got Instagram, TikTok, whatever, I'm on all of that. And then I got a website, jacobmcleodmusic.com. Really working hard on the promotion aspect. That's one thing, we all think it's we want to make music, and then you realize you got to do so much other stuff. So that's as far as shows, my winter's looking pretty clean right now. I don't have much coming up. I was really nose on the grindstone during the summer, so I thought I'd take take it easy for a bit. We got that big show at the Castle coming up next week, like I said, but it's going to be chill for a bit. I think we're picking up in January. I'll be posting about whatever shows I got coming up.
All right, that's going to conclude it for this episode of More Media Records Off the Air podcast, and we will see you next time. I am Isaac.
And I'm Devin.
And thank you for listening. See ya.